Hello and welcome to another episode of Social Science Club. My name is Toussaint Morrison. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to jump right into it. Amy Klobuchar is back in the headlines for the American Dream and Promise Act, and she met with organizers that essentially said she vowed that she was going to pass this bill. Now, this is a very simple thing for me, and we have to look at this through the lens of politicians. And I'll start with this. When I worked for PBS, we did a story on are politicians narcissists? And there was a study that revealed that 90% of politicians suffer from behaviors and symptoms of narcissism. Back in the day, when people ran for seats as elected officials, presidency, whatever, they would say, my constituents have pushed me to run for this seat in office. My people asked me to do this. Today, we hear from people and they say, I am pushing myself to run for this. And so you have a lot of people that are self-declared experts on the community that's around them, and they may not even be from that community. This happens all the time. The mayor in Minneapolis, Jacob Frey, he ran a half marathon here and said, you know what? I think I'm going to run this town. But that story to me still baffles me. It's as Deontay Wilder said, it's mind-boggling. And politicians are self-declared, so therefore there is a air of, a grandiose, I would say, not narcissism per se, but grandiose self-centeredness, or I have this and nobody else does. And it's this weird game of personalities and backstabbing and just in word jujitsu. But all that being said, Amy Klobuchar said that she's going to pass the American Dream and Promise Act. And now the American Dream and Promise Act would allow so many people to become citizens in the United States, be permanent citizens. And a lot of people pulled up to her office a few weeks ago and had a protest about it. The issue is that Amy Klobuchar, and this is for a lot of politicians, and I've noted on this before, when she was the DA of Hennepin County, the district attorney of Hennepin County here in Minnesota, she locked up an innocent black man named Mayan Burrell in 2002, I believe. He was 15 years old. And she locked him up for the murder of Taisha Lynn Edwards, a young black girl that a stray bullet went off of an intersection and killed her. And there's no evidence. There were people that essentially, what they said, fabricated stories to be evidence against Mayan, and there's no DNA evidence, no nothing. But they locked him up for 18 years, and he was in Stillwater prison for 18 years until he got out in 2020. Amy Klobuchar then used that story to leverage herself as a candidate for presidency. And she said it in a debate, and she brought it up. The thing that happened afterwards was a protest that pulled up upon her during her campaign through Minnesota, and people demanded answers. Integrity. Integrity is doing the right thing when nobody is looking. Amy Klobuchar has a history of only maybe kind of sort of doing the right thing when people are definitely looking. And we go back to this American Dream and Promise Act. She still hasn't passed it. So the idea is, will she pass something now that people are looking, and with the added pressure of the public eye? When it happened with Mayan Burrell, I believe Innocence Project, or there's something happened where he was released. It's still in his record that he did this thing. However, they said, you served enough time. And he was then released free from prison. And I see Mayan and had lunch with him. He's a great guy. I mean, he's an amazing human being. And his story is something that I think everybody should look into and read and listen to, because his story is, to me, it's something that is so amazing, his transformation that took place while in Stillwater prison. So that being said, coming back to the content, Amy's saying she's going to pass this bill. The context is that she hasn't really done that until people are looking or paying attention. The bigger lesson here is, who are the politicians surrounding you? How many people, how has your community been shaped? How have your prisons been shaped? How has your parks been shaped? How have the banks been shaped in your city due to the decisions and choices made by politicians that have been elected by your community? Once you start to look into that, you will start to see your community in such an amazingly different way. It will truly transform the way that you operate in your community. There is not a single city council member in the city of Minneapolis since the murder of George Floyd by the MPD that can go to a coffee shop without being recognized. I know every single city council person, say the 10 as fast, in Minneapolis. And I know who they are. And I know what their values and morals are. And I've met many of them in person. So it goes as far to say, I understand why certain parts of the city move in certain ways. I understand why certain policies are what got voted into certain sides of the city. I understand why this person may not be campaigning next year. So once you start to get not invested, you don't have to put like a wholehearted, educate yourself today type of deal for local politics. But once you start to notice the names, the choices, and the routes and the paths, you'll then start to understand why your community is the way that it is. And then you have definitely leveraged a first step into constructing what that looks like going forward. Not saying run for office or anything, but you can then transform what's going on in your community far more proactively than you could have before. So will Amy do this? We don't know. Do I think she will? I have no clue. I have no clue, because the more pressure, the better. Once people start to kind of lean off of it or stay off the gas, then it goes back to business as usual. And that's certainly what's happened in parts of the city here in Minneapolis. So I hope that you take some investment in your community and local politics. We'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for tuning into Social Science Club. See you in the next one.